The monastery that we see here today in Kiezkenny has its origins more than 150 years ago. In 1861, 32 Orthodox monks under the leadership of Father Andronic split off from the Neamț monastery in Romania to settle in the village of Kiezkenny in what was then the Russian Empire. After relocating to the village of Kiezkenny, the monks founded their new monastery and named it after the original, which is why its official name is the New-Nyametsky Holy Ascension Monastery. Today, the New-Nyametsky Monastery is one of the most beautiful historical complexes in the country and an important center for the Orthodox faithful. After the monks arrived in Kiezkenny, their first challenge was to recreate some of the artistic beauty and architectural splendor of the Mother Church. To this end, they hired one of the most renowned religious artists of the 19th century, Sergei Verkhovtsev, to create the icon of the Virgin Mary that became the centerpiece of the monastery's church, an icon known locally as the Nemci icon. Construction of the monastery began in 1864 with a dormitory for the religious brothers. In 1867, the foundation for the church was laid, consecrated to the exaltation of the life-giving tree of the cross of the Lord. Final work on the monastery buildings was completed in 1878. In 1880, the monks added a library, one that would become renowned for its rich wealth of religious books and sacred texts, some of which dated all the way back to the 14th century. In 1884, a catalog was composed by Father Andronic listing some 2,272 printed books and 146 incunabula in several different languages, including Greek, Russian, Moldovan, and Old Church Slavonic. The most striking feature of the monastery is its majestic bell tower, the largest in the region, completed in 1912. Composed of 5 tiers, it soars nearly 70 meters from the ground. The bell tower is home to a carillon of 12 bells, the largest of which weighs more than 8 tons. The pealing of the monastery's bells can be heard from miles around, calling the faithful to prayer and the monks to their religious duties. Unfortunately, the monastery was not able to escape the devastation of the wars and political upheavals that transformed this region. Originally part of the old Russian Empire, Kiezkenny was, for a time, part of Romania before becoming part of the Soviet Union in 1940. The Soviet period is one of the most difficult in the history of this monastery. After Bessarabia was added to the Soviet Union in 1940, the monastery's lands were confiscated in order to organize a state farm. When World War II began, many of the shrines were taken to Romania or simply stolen. In 1944, the village of Kiezkenny was liberated from fascist occupiers, and the monastery and its bell tower became the main observation post for the Soviet command in preparation for the Iași-Chișinău offensive. In 1962, the monastery was officially closed as a religious center, and several of the monastery buildings were converted into warehouses. A small military history museum briefly occupied the bell tower, and the dormitory buildings that once housed monks were converted to wards for tuberculosis patients. It was only in 1990, a year before the Soviet Union came to an end, that the monastery was reopened as a center of worship, and the much-beleaguered church building was once again reconsecrated for use by the Orthodox faithful. Subsequently, a long process of restoration and repair began to return the monastery to a suitable home. Today, it is once again fulfilling its original purpose as a center of spiritual devotion and worship. Recently, a new chapel was added and a seminary was opened on the monastery's grounds. Today, the monastery is one of the most popular tourist attractions in the country. There is also a small hotel on the monastery grounds, although its primary purpose is for visitors to be able to attend early morning liturgies held by the monks. Strolling through the shady grounds of the monastery, visitors can tour a large cellar complex that was built after 1990. This is where the Orthodox brothers store their wine, huge oaken casks of Cabernet, Merlot, and Ragazzelli which are left to age underground until ready to be savored. Today, just as a century and a half ago, the monastery's doors are open to one and all. Regardless of your spiritual beliefs, once you cross the threshold of the monastery, you will find yourself in a world where prayer and devotion have created a uniquely powerful sense of peace and well-being.